Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting. Would everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Just a couple of announcements. We did have an executive session before this meeting. In particular, we spoke about a matter of legal and specific bid proposals, a matter of real estate and specific TDR acquisitions and potential access easements, and a matter of personnel, which is in specific police negotiations. So we are recording this meeting for broadcast, so you all know. And I did want to also mention, if you did not see the flyer on the door here, we do have a blood drive coming up on June 17th. So if anyone would consider that. And I would like to just shuffle the agenda a little bit and let Officer Russell come on. Sergeant Russell, I'm so sorry. Apologies.
Hello, I have the March 2025 Westminster Township Police Report. There was no training. 132 calls for service. 3 crimes were investigated. There were 2 arrests made for simple assault and also for the PA dog law. Number of traffic stops was 12, and there was 4 traffic accidents investigated. That's all.
Thank you very much. And also, Jeff Kime, if you want to come on up ahead too, so you don't have to sit through the whole meeting. Give the fire report.
Good evening, everyone. The Lewis Corner Fire Company report for March of 2025. For Westminster Township, we had a total of 30 calls, 2 auto accidents, 2 building fires, 4 treating wires. We had 1 brush fire, and we had 21 QRS calls. Our total time in service for West Vincent was 23 hours, 14 minutes. Our total man hours was 308 hours and 51 minutes. We had a total of 19 calls in Upper Euclid, 7 in East Namio, and 8 for mutual aid. We had an average response of 10 members per call, and we had an average response of 2 members per EMS incidents. And our total training hours for the month were 216.
So you're saying you have 10 average manpower has been 10.
10
Is
people.
that up or down from, say, 10 years ago?
That's higher, actually.
It's
a little bit higher, yes.
Sound.
Yeah, 10 for fire and 2 for EMS, so that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
That's average across the board between daytime, nighttime, weekday, and weekend. So 10 is pretty good.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do need to make a motion to approve the April 7th meeting minutes.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor? Oh, actually, you can see them now. So if anyone has a comment, please. Anyone have a comment on the minutes? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Will be approved. Like the motion to approve the ordinance 213. Do you need to do that, please?
Yeah, we had the public hearing on that, so. Yeah, before the board tonight, is consideration of ordinance 213-2025, which are amendments to the anti-discrimination ordinance that's been discussed by the board over the last couple of months. There's, I think, lengthy discussion at your workshop in March, I believe. And as a result of those conversations, I prepared an ordinance to amend that legislation in a couple of places. And it's just consistent with the recommendations that were being proposed by the Human Relations Commission of the township. And specifically, to change the definition of discrimination, discriminatory acts, and sexual orientation. And add different language with respect to what are unlawful practices in section 2, part 1, and in section 3, part 1. Provide for when the Human Relations Commission can meet. There was no specific section in the ordinance, previous ordinance, as to when the Human Relations Commission would meet. So we added language that allows them to meet on an as-needed basis, to conduct their business. That's summary of the ordinance as we prepared, that was advertised for tonight's meeting. With that, first, does any member of the board have any questions or comments about the ordinance?
I just want to clarify on when they can meet. I think we have it, if I'm correct, we have it advertised that they have a meeting date once a month, but can we, it is as needed though,
In
is that right?
the ordinances shall meet on an as-needed basis as shall be authorized by the board of supervisors.
But do we need to establish that right now?
Well, you can do it now, or we can, after we adopt the ordinance, then you can set the meeting schedule for them for the rest of the year.
Okay.
And the board can vote on that. So I don't know whether they have plans as to when they want to meet. It's a monthly meeting. So I would suggest that after you adopt the ordinance, you also make a motion to authorize them to meet. Whatever.
Right, and I don't know, someone who's here from there, Tommy, you were at that meeting,
Yeah.
if there was a recommendations.
Now, there was discussion about meeting again, and they were going to coordinate schedules.
So I suggest you include this hearing, and then if you adopt the changes, then we got that done. And then if you want to entertain when it is you like them to meet, then we can have that discussion. This doesn't have to be done tonight. You can, if the Human Relations Commission wants to come back with a proposal when they want to meet, how often they want to meet, bring it to the board, then you can then vote on that to authorize them to do it then. Any other member of the board have any questions about the ordinance as it's proposed?
No.
Does any member of the public have any comments or questions about the ordinance? You have to come up and state your name. We're having a hearing, so name and address.
Christopher Carroll, St. Matthews Road, West Vincent Township. I was on the Human Relations Commission briefly, beginning of this year to fill in for one of the resignations. And we at the time basically had decided that we'd like to have a recurring regular meeting advertised and then have the ability to cancel if there's nothing for the agenda. And a lot of the commissions and committees already do that. So I'd like to be on equal playing field with the other commissions and committees in the township, with the ability to meet once a month at a regular scheduled day and time. And if there's nothing to meet, we would just notify the township in advance. So just like we would for any other agenda, we would notify the township that agenda would be published on the township's website. And if we needed to, we would just cancel. That's what I would like to see the HRC do as a citizen and non-member of the HRC at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Beth McDonald, Fire Station, West Vincent Township. I just wanted to clarify that our next meeting is the 6th because I am on the committee. And I believe that that was communicated to put out to the public in advance. So just wanted to clear that up.
6th of May?
In 6th of May. And there was talk about once a month. So as far as whether or not it's going to recur on the same day, I think we're going to probably visit that again in May. So just to clear that up, we will be meeting probably about once a month, but needed if something comes up in the unlikely event. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? George, coming up?
George Stelchinos, this is just in general clarification, reading through the ordinance where the ordinance references mental disability and discrimination based on mental disability.
Are you talking about? the-
Yeah, in the
the
ordinance.
Original ordinance or this?
Yeah, I think it's in the original and in the current.
Okay, what's the question?
I guess the question I would have is how do you discriminate or how do you, what's the difference between determining mental competency for a task and discriminating against mental disability?
It's not for us to say. What I
But-
think what the ordinance is trying to say that if you have a mental disability and you're discriminated against, then it's for you to bring that forward and or someone on your behalf to say, because of my mental disability or physical disability, because of that, I've been discriminated against. So it's a fact basis, case by case issue. So if someone has in fact been discriminated against because they have a mental disability, then they have the ability under this ordinance to bring a claim.
But isn't like the ability to do a job
That's
or,
not-
or inability to do it, in fact,
No.
discriminatory?
No.
If you make a decision based on that?
Well, that would remain to be seen whether or not that is a mental disability. I tell you, I don't think so. This is mental health issues. If you have a mental health issue, and on that, and you're being discriminated because of that, not because you're not smart enough to do a job.
Okay,
That's what I'm
but
saying.
is that something that should be clarified in the wording of the ordinance?
No, it didn't clarify at all. It's a factual basis. If you've been discriminated against because you have a mental disability, then you could bring your claim and say, I have a mental disability. I was not hired, or I was thrown out of my apartment, or I wasn't served at the restaurant because of my mental disability. It's a fact basis analysis. Mental health basis, right? Just like all these others.
Okay, but
It's, it's just like all these others. Genetic information. I don't know what your genetic information is, but if you believe that something about your genetics caused someone to discriminate against you, you have the ability to file a claim under the act, on the statute.
okay, I think we got some gray areas there that,
Well,
It's all
we
gray.
can't specifically define all of this. It's for those that are subject to discrimination to bring a claim saying they were discriminated against, and for the Human Relations Commission to have a hearing or mediate the situation. So
You bring something to them and they say, no, it doesn't
Yeah.
qualify.
you got to show you have a mental health issue, and therefore that's why you've been discriminated against.
okay, I guess it says mental disability, not mental health issue.
Well, let's not play semantics. If you have a mental disability, whatever that may be, whatever you think you have the right to bring a claim because you think you've been discriminated against because you have a mental disability.
Okay, I think there's a lot of potential claims, I think, that are there, whether someone brings them or not, I don't know.
Someone will need to bring it, right? Whether it's mental health or mental retardation or something doing with your mental ability. You can bring it.
Okay,
If you think
I just think it should
If
be
you have it,
spelled out instead of leaving it vague.
it's completely spelled out. It's not vague. It's as spelled out as we're going to get.
It looks,
Okay.
looks like we have someone who wants to talk to that. Maybe you'll get an answer.
Yeah, we need, anyone,
Come
wait,
on.
hold on, come up to the podium if you want to talk.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay,
And he was gonna answer you, I think.
wait a minute, wait, just get to the podium first. Thank you, Chris.
I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of Pennsylvania, so I'm very familiar with discrimination against disability because it's protected at the federal and state level as well. So if we didn't include this at the current time, federal and state law would prevail protecting mental disability from discrimination. The reason why we're putting it in the ordinance now is to basically continue to protect this protected class of people who have mental, intellectual disabilities, whatever they may be, from discrimination, is in the event that the state and or federal level removes that from their protections there, they will remain in place here at the township. That is why it is in the ordinance. have to have it right now, but we're putting it in there out of an abundance of caution that either the federal or state government removes it from the current protections. That's why it's there. I suggest if you have a problem with it, talk to the state and the feds.
Anyone else have any comments regarding the ordinance? All right, hearing none, I suggest you close the hearing. And consider it closed. And then you, if you wish now, you can vote on adopting the ordinance as presented.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 213-205 to amend the Township Code of West Vincent, Part 1, Administrative Legislation, and Chapter 6 of the Anti-Discrimination.
Second.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I guess, do we want to just go, do we want to say, leave it once a month and they can cancel, or?
Well, I would actually suggest that we get recommendations from the committee
Yeah.
about when they're gonna meet, how often they think they're gonna meet,
That
what
was
day they're
just
gonna
from
meet.
the committee.
Right, so if they're gonna meet in May, I think the thing that we're looking for from that meeting is recommendations about meeting days, when, where, all those other good things.
And I think that is one of the regular dates, correct? That is the same as last month, or no? 'Cause we do have to be careful about.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for everybody on the committee. So for right now, let's say May 6th is it's already on our agenda, and I'll follow up with your secretary to ensure that it's properly advertised. And then I'll get back with y'all after that meeting to let you know if we're going to have a standing meeting on a specific day.
You actually can't, because there's another meeting.
Yeah, that was brought up, but we mentioned there was multiple meeting spaces, like we wouldn't have to meet in here, or is that not possible?
You would have to use the small back room and someone would have to be in there with you, and that's
I would,
not ideal.
I'd be there.
You'd be
Yeah,
okay
he
with
had-
that?
Yeah, he
You'd be
had
okay with them doing that?
volunteered.
Okay.
Yeah, so at that meeting, I'll make sure to add that to our agenda. Thank you so much.
So that would be first Tuesdays, or you'll decide at that point?
We will decide on May 6th and circle
Okay.
back with the board to let you know if it'll be a standing meeting on that specific week and that day of the month.
Okay, then.
Okay, great.
Let's we'll wait to hear. Let's move on. So, at long last, we have the sustainability plan, which has been worked on for quite some time. And I believe Kip snuck in here. Did you want to say anything, or Chris, do you guys have anything to say about the sustainability plan, or? You're welcome. You don't have to, just giving you an opportunity, okay? Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the West Vincent Township Sustainability Initiatives for 2025 through 2030.
Second.
anyone have any comments? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think now we just have to make sure we do our homework to get it out there so everyone can start acting on these initiatives. So thank you very much to the Sustainability Committee for working so hard on that. Next up, we have Buttonwood Bridge Services Agreement.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to execute an agreement for engineering design services with Bowman, the township traffic engineer, for the Buttonwood Bridge Replacement Project.
I'll second that motion.
Any questions? Comments? Nope. Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. And we also need a motion to reject a current bid. And this is for-
I'll make a motion to bid all, a motion to reject all bids received for the Opelika Park Improvement Project.
Second.
Any questions on that?
Explain why. Obvious question.
What's the question?
You want us to know why?
Explain why you rejected all bids.
Rejecting the bids.
Hope they get better bids.
It's financial. I
Yeah,
mean, they were.
Yeah.
You were looking for a better price.
yeah, it's gonna go out for rebid. Yeah.
It'll go right out again.
And you think it'll go out, you get a better bid because due to time frame or?
Well, mostly because we're gonna try to break up the bid into a base bid and alternate bids.
Okay, so you're gonna change the bid.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Format.
the same items being bid, but the format's gonna change.
Okay,
We could
So- so
potentially
you're
take
actually
some
gonna
bids
be-
off to.
you're gonna get multiple bids for the project. You do it in pieces.
Well, it'll be, I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, you say you're-
Each bidder will have the opportunity to bid on the base bid and the alternate.
They have to bid on everything. We just may or may not award the whole project if we feel it's still over budget.
So they would be bidding on a partial and then a whole.
No, they
No,
would
they-
bid the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, do you want to explain that?
Yes.
So how is that different than what they've just done?
Because it was bid as one complete project and it came in way above where we anticipated it being.
Right?
And we do not have the current ability to say, oh, let's not do this or let's not do that because of the way it was
Right.
put out to bid. So the way we're putting it out to bid now, we will have the ability to, see where the bids come in again. Maybe they'll come in lower, who knows? But we'll have the ability to award only parts of it if we choose to do.
So
that.
is it like a line item type of thing?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
portions of it. Are any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to award the following bids, to the highest responsive and responsible bidders, as noted. Airflow salt spreader in the bid amount of $91 to Jonathan Oler, Malvern, PA. 2015 Chevy Silverado in the bid amount of $14,200 to Brian Owens, Clearfield, Pennsylvania. And Kenwood Mobile Radios in the bid amount of $575 to David Sungalow, Lakewood, Colorado.
So moved?
Second.
I don't think we have to actually bid on that, do we?
No, no.
Vote on that. Anyway,
Oh, well,
yeah, we're just announcing that.
okay. No, it's a vote.
No,
It's a
No, it's
vote.
a
It is?
motion. It's a motion.
Okay, all right. Well, you seconded. Anyone else have a question about those items? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And sadly, but not sadly, we have an open space review board resignation.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Jim Wendelgas from the Open Space Review Board.
Second.
That's so he could join us here today. Does anyone have a question about that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. So sorry to see him go. A world of knowledge.
Even closer. And we also have a Parks and Recreation Committee resignation as well.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Jim Scaparato from the Parks and Recreation Committee.
I'll second that.
And we thank Jim very much, and we definitely hate to see him go as well.
Yep.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We've been expenditure approval and ratification. Motion to ratify employee payroll dated April 8th for the pay period March 25th to May 5th. General fund list of bills dated March 14th to April 17th in the amount of $204,470.91. An open space reserve fund list of bills dated March 14th to April 17th in the amount of $171,812.76. And capital equipment fund list of bills dated March 14th to April 17th in the amount of $195,648.74. I just want to mention on the open space, there's actually, some, $100,000 that's being credited back, so it's actually just the 70,000 that went to the cost of the trail work that is coming out of open space, that will credit back in again.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Tom, did you want to discuss the finance?
Presented this evening is a report that includes receipts and expenditures for the year through the end of March.
Do we have anything on the public works, or is this online? Okay, so please feel free to look at that. And also Tommy is now our official zoning officer, so he can speak to that as well.
So working with the codes and permitting director, we'll prepare moving forward a building and zoning department report. It will list the number of permits, both building and zoning, issued the prior month, and provide an update on projects in the entitlement pipeline about subdivisions and land developments, and also an update on any pending applications before the zoning hearing board.
Very much. Do we have any new business from the floor? Old business? I'll move on to public comment. Yeah, we're going a little different for you there, John, right? No one to jump in.
Okay. Here I am. First off, it got published online, the financials, but there were two missing, the Capital Projects Fund, the Citadel Fund. Is there any chance that they, when I say there's something missing or something last month there was something corrected, that you would put it online, you put it up or correct it for the record?
No, we'll make sure those are included next month and moving forward. There was a problem with the software that didn't allow us to publish it last week, but we'll include that in the finance department report moving forward.
So we'll correct the March financial statements?
I'm not sure I follow you.
Okay, it's not in the March financial statement.
Yeah.
Will you change the March financial statements to include it?
Well, why don't we do this, John? After the meeting, let's talk. I just want to be sure what you're referring to. I did get an email from you today. I didn't have a chance to look it over. But if that was noted in your email, we can talk about it after the meeting.
Yeah, it was noted, and I always send you an email, but the statements get published the day before or the work day before this meeting. And so if I have questions, they will be on the day of the meeting, and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, I think,
That's
that
not what's
the
going
statements.
We're not going forward. We're not doing it the day before.
No, so what's included in the meeting packet that you have before you, and the meeting packet for the audience is the same meeting packet the board has here. That is published no later than Thursday before the meeting. Usually it's Wednesday or Thursday before the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, what we do is publish the bill run, usually the day of the meeting, because we could be cutting checks up until the meeting day. So we keep that open as long as possible.
Go back, you were writing checks up till the meeting day?
We leave that possibility, yes. If something comes in that requires payment, then we'll cut a check if it's needed that day.
And you predate it to the prior month?
No, it's.
Well, then it won't have any effect on your
It's-
financial statement.
It's dated. Yeah.
If the March 31 statements would be done, you can't change them if you write checks.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know where we are now. Okay, there's three other things. We have these proliferation of funds, I consider it. The Citadel Fund, which I've sent in this email, is the income from expenses in the general fund. Is that correct? And so why is it separated? You have expenses in the general fund and the income in the Citadel Fund.
Yeah.
Shouldn't that be in one single fund?
It doesn't have to be, no.
It doesn't have to be, no, sure. But doesn't it, why don't you put the expenses and the income in the same fund? That, you don't have to, but it makes a lot of sense. Okay. The sewer fund, which is, sort of sits there and languishes on and on with some amount of $28,000, which hasn't been changed probably for a year and a half. And much of it is maybe interest income, et cetera. Is there any thought of eliminating that fund?
Not at this time, but if I were to give it thought, I'd review it with both our auditors and review it with the township solicitor to see what the options are.
Okay. The American Rescue Plan, it's got $24,000 in it. And to my understanding, if it wasn't spent by December 31, we had to return it.
Yeah, so it's all the funds have been expended. There was a deadline for the end of last year, December 31st, 2024, but it wasn't a deadline to spend everything. It was a deadline to encumber everything, put it under contract and so forth. Municipalities who still have ARPA dollars in their accounts have until December 31st, 2026 to actually spend them. But we have expended all of our dollars. In fact, it was just, I believe, today that we filed the final report closing out our ARPA fund dollars with the federal government.
Okay, what was the 24,000 committed to?
Okay, Jim, the
The last thing I think that was committed with ARPA funds was the purchase of a police vehicle.
Yeah,
But one of the things you need to understand about ARPA is we only report back to ARPA on what they gave us, not the interest that we've accumulated on what they gave us. So
okay,
that what happens is we need to zero sum that out. We've in fact zero sum that out with 5 separate expenditures. The last of which was the purchase of a police vehicle.
okay. But, and that was committed last year and you don't have it yet?
It was committed last year, was actually paid this year because of delivery issues with the manufacturer. So it wasn't delivered, paid for, I think, until the January 28th, I believe, was the date of the check.
Well, it wasn't paid, you mean the check written in January didn't clear yet for 24,000? What, doesn't make sense here.
I'm not, I have no idea what you're referring to in terms of the $24,000. That's, I'll.
Well, if you look at like last month's fund balance report, it was on there. And if you look at year-end fund balance, it was on there.
If I look at last month's fund balance for ARPA as of 3/31/2025, the fund balance is 0. The fund balance as of 2/28/25 was $397.93. This is why I don't know what you're looking at.
Okay, then.
Because the balance as of a year ago was $128,000. Since that time, we have spent that money on a number of things. And the most recent expenditure was the police vehicle, which was done in, I believe it was paid in January, which took the balance down to the $397.93.
Okay. Well, did you earn $300 of interest on that last month? The interest income would indicate a higher balance, but I'll get off that subject because we aren't going to get anywhere. Is there any progress in hiring your accountant? I saw it online that
The finance director position?
yeah.
Yeah, interviews are continuing.
Have you interviewed anybody? I mean,
Yes.
okay. How many? Sort of nebulous.
Yeah, we don't provide details for personnel.
Okay.
But when we make a decision, John, I'll call you first.
Thank you. I guess we're in public comment at this point. Come on up. Sure.
Thank you. It's nice. I like the package. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jamie McVicker. That's what I was gonna say.
This is great. Thanks for the great packet of information. Unfortunately, it's one of those cases where the more information you give, sometimes it means more questions. And I guess I missed the police and fire report. Did they go first out of order? I just wondered, it said 10 fires for the police department last month?
A lot of brush fires, I know.
Okay, just
And-
odd.
And some auto accidents may have had fires.
With fires, yeah. And they have a category called suspicious conditions. There were 8 of them in February. I mean, you guys don't have to respond. It was their report, but does anybody know what a suspicious condition?
Fire or police?
Fire, or sorry, police. Police.
I guess it could be anything.
I can speak personally as to that, and I have reported to the police that there are suspicious people. It was a situation where one of my neighbors I knew was away, and a truck drove up, went up their driveway and went around the back of their house, and I called the police.
Okay.
So it was a
That's probably
suspicious
that.
condition. It was investigated by the police. They determined that it was a contractor who had authority to be there, so it was a non-issue. But
Okay.
those are the type of things which can be suspicious conditions. They're typically, a resident would call in and report a suspicious condition.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I just want to follow up on what John said. I want to follow up on John. Tommy, John sort of got cut himself off. You didn't cut him off. If I understand correctly, John was saying if checks are cut now, like you're holding reports out for checks that will be cut late, but that doesn't impact in this case, March's report. The March financial report could go out by the 5th as soon as the bank reconciliation is finished.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's what John's saying. If you could post, this is something, unfortunately, you're bearing the brunt of a lot of issues. But what had been agreed to in the past was that once the bank rec is completed for the previous month, the financial report could come out within a couple of days after you've reviewed the final numbers. And the earlier you do that, the more time it gives our erstwhile auditor, self-appointed but also elected, to ask questions and get things addressed before it takes up time in these meetings. So that's just a preference, a comment, and something for you to consider. Just because people agreed to it in the past doesn't mean you have to do it, but that would make things easier for everybody. The minutes. So Christina's not here. Are you taking minutes now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for publishing them in advance, the draft. I think that's been done a couple of times now. So anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Kate Farnham, St. Matthews Road, West Vincent. I just had a question. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historical Commission. We had sent a draft letter to you all last week regarding the Bertrandville Road Bridge replacement. We were just curious, wasn't sure it might be on the agenda tonight, but it was not. Just, did you have any feedback on that or comments? Do we need to revise it? We're feeling a lot of urgency to get this letter out to PennDOT as soon as possible because their design process is moving forward. And I think the historic preservation angle is probably one of the most effective ways we can try to affect the design of the bridge if it's, destroying the rural atmosphere of Bertrandville. We would like to do what we can to get them some feedback as quickly as we can on our concerns.
Thank you, Kate. And Tommy, I guess that letter went to you. I don't know if you have any comment on that. Or...
Yeah, maybe we should speak after the meeting. There were a couple of points in the letter that might be a concern to PennDOT.
Okay. All right. And my other comment was, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm sure this has probably come up before. Is there some sort of way to not have all the sports games overlap with the meetings that go on here? Because it's just, I feel like every time I've been here in the last month or so, it's come up at 6:30 to 7, there's no parking and you're out in the road and people are parking in fire lanes and that's not safe for a lot of us. So I just was curious if there's any thought to scheduling games earlier so they'd end by the time, the meetings start here. I don't know if that's ever been
I don't
discussed.
think we have any control over that because it's rented out to other people at this point, at least for this season.
Right. No, I'm just curious
It'd
if
be
that
great
had
if
ever
we had
been.
more space. I don't know what it's like over there, if we could even say, don't park in this lot, but
Yeah, I don't know. I don't either. I
It's-
don't have kids doing sports anymore, but
yeah.
Say that's exactly what you.
Cause I'm always here, so I don't know if it's full up there and they need this overflow.
There's nobody parked out on the core one.
Yeah.
One car, they can park there.
yeah, I'm just curious if they could sort of steer people to the other parking
And
lots.
is that something we could consider posting, temporary no parking during our meeting hours?
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Julia Brandel, I'll just finish that comment. Yeah, we could absolutely ask them that, just say, we have a meeting, can you please park in the lot on 401 or whatever that lot is called, or the top lot? Because obviously it's the closest place for them to park, but it does create a problem because we all leave here after dark. So it's more difficult for us to park over there. But I know they rent the fields, but the township owns the fields. So you can certainly direct them to park somewhere else.
It's nice that we do get the turnout we do, and I hate to discourage people, so thank you for mentioning.
Well, I think people might have driven by and not come in because the parking lot was full too. So you don't have everybody here that you might have had here.
So I had a question regarding the conditional use decision for Butterscotch. So there's a reference in there in the decision to the ordinance that says something that says that the ground floor of a restaurant in the Bertrandville zoning district needs to be 2,000 square feet or less. And that's referenced in the decision. Do you know, is that 2,000 square feet? How is that calculated? When the ordinance especially doesn't say, it just says the ground floor.
I don't know how it's calculated, but that was a finding in the 2016 decision.
Okay,
That was that.
so in the 2016 decision, it says that they,
That they were under 2,000 square feet, so I don't know.
okay,
That was one of the conditions, that's one of the conditions you need to satisfy to get that use. You have to be under 2,000 square feet, so they made that finding.
okay.
How they did.
So no one calculated it recently,
Not recently, we just accepted that. There was no testimony.
right? It wasn't even mentioned at all in the hearings.
So the assumption is that's still the fact of the case.
I see. Okay. Another question regards Hollow Road and no parking signs. When the ordinance was passed to declare a section of Hollow Road to be, to prohibit parking, they did not put a sign. They put a sign across where more people were parking on the grass on the Butterscotch property. And so now I think people think they can park there because there's no parking sign there. They put it across the street. And I don't know why they avoided it. I suspect they avoided it because it was a subject of the conditional use hearing. I would ask that the Public Works Department move that sign across the street so it's clear that there's no parking there. Does that make
There's no
sense?
parking on either side.
There's no parking on either side,
Right,
but
so I don't know if we would move one, maybe add one.
Well,
then add another sign, but it seemed ridiculous to add another sign. I
the
mean,
ordinance is pretty clear. There's no parking allowed, so there should be sufficient signage.
there isn't now though.
Well, there should be on both sides of the street.
So I think you're.
Okay, so I'm asking for sufficient signage, I guess,
George, I think you're referring to where people were parking kind of.
on the
facing
grass.
out and.
Yes, now they're parking parallel to the road instead of perpendicular to the road. But the ordinance says there's no parking in that section of Hollow
Are they
Road.
parking on the grass though, or on?
Well, it's sort of roped off, but not by the township, and people think they can park there. So what I'm saying is that there should be sufficient signage, and that was omitted when the signs were put up earlier this year. I mean,
I agree. with
Yeah, I
you.
think
There
it's
should be
evolving, yeah.
There should be signage there.
And I would ask just for aesthetics that I noticed the signs will say no parking and there's an arrow under the sign that points to both sides of the street if the sign references both sides of the street. I don't know if people look at that or not. I would say instead of putting a sign along my fence where people never park, it would be smarter to put it on the other side. But if you think you just need to change the signpost and put a double arrow and that'll work, you can try it, but I suspect it won't. And then I guess my last comment is just in general, is there any thought of prohibiting parking by ordinance along Flowing Springs Road? In that section,
What section are you talking about?
section of Flowing Springs Road between Hollow Road and Schoolhouse.
Right?
No,
It's a state
Yeah.
road.
The state road.
so is Hollow.
State road.
Hollow's a state road.
That portion is, yeah.
That certainly could be looked at. I don't know the answer.
I mean, I think
If I can
that
ask, what ordinance are you referring to? Was there an ordinance?
there's a no parking ordinance passed earlier this year.
Yeah, it was right before you came, added the signs in front of the cafe, but before the conditional use was.
So I mean, I think it's the same situation and it's adjacent roads. So I think it would make sense.
Go look at that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So I had a question too about
Could you just state your name? I'm sorry.
Sue Krug. I had a question as well about the decision that the board made, because I read through, it was 21-page document that came from the board. And is there a grace period that they have to abide by what you said in the decision?
Well, there's no grace period. There's an appeal period that any party can appeal. It's 30 days to appeal, so that we haven't passed the 30 days yet. And then, beyond that, if the applicant does not appeal, then enforcement takes place.
So whose responsibility is it to be sure that they're abiding by the 21-page document?
Me, township manager, zoning officer, township manager.
Okay, so we can address our concerns.
We gotta get there. We're not there yet, but we gotta get there.
Okay, I just, for the record, I took pictures this weekend. There are signs telling people to park at the township building property that's shared with the Todds. There were 17 cars there. And even though Mr. Todd suggested he had 20 parking spaces, they were all blocking each other in. And there were signs from the Butterscotch saying overflow parking, park here. And, when I read that decision, it just didn't seem that the township was going to allow that without a safe passage.
And when did you say there was?
My pictures were from not this past Sunday, the Sunday before, and this Sunday is
Tax season.
well, no, yes, but they were,
Yeah.
Barry, they were going down.
Yeah.
But the signs telling people to park there were there this past Sunday. It was
Okay.
past
All
tax
right.
season.
I'm just letting you know
Okay, I
that
get that.
it was during
but-
tax season, and I've had this discussion with one of the Todds about what happens during tax season, and they just get swamped.
On a Sunday with signs pointing to park there. I was just surprised. I've lived there for 24 years and I've never seen a Sunday tax season that crowded. So I just assumed because there was a sign saying, please park here for overflow from the Butterscotch, that was a combination. Okay, so thank you.
Hello, Steve Sladek, 1420 Hollow Road in Bertrandville. Just a couple of comments. I wasn't planning on even speaking, but I wanted to add to what George was saying about the no parking on Hollow Road. The sign that is next to the Butterscotch property, the signpost there, they skipped that sign when they did put up no parking signs. So people are parking there illegally still. The other part of it, which I talked to Mike Hoga when he put up the signs, is there's a private parking sign on that post that says parking for Butterscotch and the cafe. So it's very confusing. The signs around it say no parking. The private sign for Butterscotch is on the post that says parking here. So that sign needs to come down and a no parking sign needs to go up. Please. As far as the grace period that Sue was talking about, I think what she meant, and I know what I mean is, what's the time frame to them to meet all the conditions that you put in your approval process?
There is no specific time frame. We're hoping that they comply. And if they don't, there will be enforcement.
Well,
So they need to come forward with a plan as the ordinance, the decision requires them to come forward with a parking plan, et cetera.
Okay.
So that has.
So a year,
No,
a
it's
month,
not a year.
because
Not
it's
a
been a year.
Not a year.
No, it's been a year is what I'm
I
saying.
understand that.
So they applied in March or April of last year.
I understand that.
So they haven't complied then. They haven't been complying for over 5 years. How much longer do we have to wait?
I don't know.
Right, it really hasn't even been 30 days yet, and I think we're all anxious to.
No, I'm talking about the
to
conditions. You put in there that says it is approved based on these conditions.
Right.
How long do they have to meet those conditions?
I don't know. We'll wait and see.
I can tell you that the day after the board approved the order, I met with counsel for the property owner.
Yeah.
And we talked about next steps moving forward. And within a week, I received a telephone call from a couple of engineering firms that they had contacted to begin work on the design of a parking lot that complies with the order.
Right.
So I think they're moving forward at a decent pace right now.
Well, I wouldn't say that's a decent pace. Like I said, they've been in violation for over 5 years, and they've had a year of application to provide a plan.
I'm talking about from the order moving forward.
Yeah, I understand.
We met within 24 hours and had a good discussion about moving forward at a decent pace.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Else? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to mention that our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, April 30th at 7 p.m. at the Township Building, and that will be for conditional use for Hothouse Kipperton. I believe that's all we have for this evening. Thank you all for coming out, and we'll see what we can do to get you some spaces next time. Have a good evening. Adjourned.